In the aftermath of World War I, a wounded and decorated fighter pilot named Hermann Göring returned to a defeated Germany. A man of ambition, charm, and ruthlessness, he would rise through the ranks of a new political movement, one that would plunge the world into darkness. By the time of World War II, Göring was not just a Nazi official, he was one of the most powerful men in Adolf Hitler's Third Reich. As head of the Luftwaffe, German Air Force, and Hitler's designated successor, he controlled the machinery of war, wealth, and terror. But his legacy would not be one of victory. It would be one of crimes against humanity.
Born in 1893, Hermann Göring grew up in an aristocratic military family. He dreamed of glory on the battlefield, and during World War I, he became a celebrated fighter pilot, earning 22 aerial victories and the prestigious Blue Max Medal. But Germany's defeat in 1918 shattered his dreams. Like many veterans, he was filled with resentment and anger, blaming politicians and the Treaty of Versailles for Germany's humiliation. It was this frustration that led him to a rising political force, Adolf Hitler's Nazi Party. By the early 1920s, Göring had become one of Hitler's closest allies. He took part in the failed Beer Hall Putsch of 1923, an early Nazi coup attempt, where he was wounded. Forced into exile, he developed an addiction to morphine, a habit that would plague him for the rest of his life. But when Hitler rose to power in 1933, Göring's fortunes changed. He was appointed Minister of the Interior of Prussia, where he created the Gestapo, the secret police that would become a tool of Nazi terror.
As Hitler consolidated power, Göring's influence grew. He was appointed head of the Luftwaffe, overseeing the rebuilding of Germany's air force in defiance of the Treaty of Versailles. Under his leadership, the Luftwaffe became a deadly force, used to bomb cities, crush resistance, and terrorize civilians. But Göring was not just a military leader, he was a master of plunder. He seized Jewish businesses, looted art from occupied Europe, and amassed a personal fortune. He lived in opulent mansions, wore extravagant uniforms, and surrounded himself with wealth, while millions suffered under Nazi rule. By 1939, Hitler had named him his official heir and successor, the second most powerful man in the Reich. But power alone was not enough for Göring. He would also become one of the architects of genocide.
Göring was a key figure in the Nazi plan to exterminate millions. In July 1941, he signed an order instructing SS leader Reinhard Heydrich to implement the final solution to the Jewish question, a bureaucratic term for the systematic mass murder of Europe's Jews. This order set in motion the creation of death camps where millions were gassed, shot, and starved to death. While Göring did not personally oversee the camps, he was directly responsible for enabling the policies that led to the deaths of 6 million Jews and millions of others. His crimes were not just those of war, but of inhumanity on an unimaginable scale.
In the early years of World War II, Göring boasted that no enemy plane would ever bomb Berlin. But his overconfidence proved disastrous. During the Battle of Britain, 1940, the Luftwaffe suffered a humiliating defeat, failing to crush the Royal Air Force. Göring's miscalculations and arrogance cost Germany the chance for an early victory. By 1943, the tide of war had turned. Allied bombers devastated German cities, and Göring, once hailed as the mastermind of air power, was now a symbol of failure. Hitler lost trust in him, stripping him of much of his influence. By 1945, the Third Reich was collapsing. Göring, sensing Hitler's downfall, attempted to take control of Germany, but Hitler, enraged by what he saw as a betrayal, had him arrested.
As Nazi Germany fell, Göring was captured by the U.S. Army in May 1945. He was taken to Nuremberg, where he became the highest-ranking Nazi official to stand trial for war crimes and crimes against humanity. During the Nuremberg trials, Göring tried to portray himself as a military leader, not a criminal. But the evidence was overwhelming: his role in the Holocaust, the forced labor camps, the looting of occupied lands. He was found guilty on all counts and sentenced to death by hanging. But Göring refused to give his enemies the satisfaction of executing him. On October 15, 1946, just hours before his scheduled execution, he took a cyanide pill in his prison cell and died. His last act was not one of defiance, it was one of cowardice, ensuring that he never faced the gallows for his crimes.
Hermann Göring was once one of the most powerful men in the world, but his arrogance, greed, and cruelty ensured that his name would be remembered not as a hero, but as a villain. He was a man who built a kingdom on terror and lies, who looted nations for his own wealth, who sent millions to their deaths while living in luxury. His fall from grace was absolute. His empire crumbled. His master was dead. His dreams of power ended in a prison cell with a poison pill. And today, history remembers him not for his victories, but for his crimes.
The story of Hermann Göring is a lesson in the dangers of unchecked power, blind ambition, and moral corruption. He helped build one of the most evil regimes in history, and though justice was served, the horrors he enabled can never be undone. As a man who thought himself untouchable, a man who believed he could shape the world, but in the end the world judged him, and his name will forever be a symbol of cruelty, betrayal, and disgrace.
Hermann Göring was a war hero turned war criminal. He climbed to the heights of power only to fall into disgrace, and though he tried to escape justice, history will never forget his crimes.